Joining us now, South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott. Mr. Scott, welcome to the show. First time. We appreciate it very much. Some people have said that we're not going to get the debt ceiling increased properly until we end the shutdown of the government, until we reopen the government. Some people have come on the show tonight and said that by Monday we could reopen the government and end the shutdown. Where do you come out on all that?
I think it's obvious that the negotiators at the table really are the House majority Republicans. The Senate majority Democrats have to get to the same table. The president will have to sign off on a deal. I think that there's some reason to be optimistic that that will happen. No question that today's announcement from Speaker Boehner about the 6-week debt ceiling is a different conversation, but the same path forward. The real question we should ask ourselves as Americans and as taxpayers are we dealing with the underlying problem that continues to push up the need for a credit card increase? That debt ceiling is an increase only reflects the fact that we've spent more money than we're bringing in, and in the last 5 years, it's nearly $5 trillion more. So what we really want to have is a conversation about controlling the underlying problem.
You know, Senator, I don't pretend to speak for Americans broadly. I speak for myself, and it feels frustrating that we would be talking about, I guess if the best you can do is buy time by raising the debt ceiling for 6 weeks, you do the buy time. But it's very frustrating to me, the idea that we're going to come back to this and visit this same discussion again in 6 weeks. And then maybe 6 weeks after that. How do you get past that kind of quicksand and break through? I don't get it.
Well, I'm with you, Larry. In my honest assessment, one of the challenges I've had through this entire process, I said it back in July, we need to be working on issues that are 1 year long. We have a 1 year budgeting process. We should not have short-term resolutions that fund the government. Think of a $4 trillion entity, a $4 trillion company. No one in their right mind, no CEO of the company would allow for us to have 6-week increments to deal with the finances of a $4 trillion company. So I take that approach as a small business owner for the last 15 years. It only makes sense to me that we'd have a long-term strategy, understanding the priorities that we need to meet, the obligations that we've already committed ourselves to, and not make new obligations if we can't pay for the ones that we have today. The problem that we have today in Washington is that we have two very different philosophies that undergird the actions of both the Republican and Democrat parties. We have to bring those two together and find some common ground to make this country work like a more efficient machine.
Now, Senator Scott, I mean, I come from a group of perhaps a generation that's so used to kicking the can down the road, if you'll forgive the cliche. That's all we've ever known for the past 5 or 6 years. So what is it going to take to get a long-term deal done, to keep this government open, to get our fiscal path in order? What would you like to see coming out of your particular party and even the Democrats about what's going to happen with long-term budget success?
Well, long-term budget success really means that someone like Paul Ryan and Senator Murray sit down at the same table. They're $1 trillion apart. The challenging situation that we have before us today is that the Senate budget that we went 3.5, almost 4 years without a budget, 1,200 plus days without a budget in the Senate. We need that budget that's hard to reconcile with the House budget. The House budget has a desire for the next 10 years to get to a place where it balances. The Senate's budget simply says we need more revenue from everyday Americans, which means higher taxes, more revenues, close more gaps, get more revenue. So the challenge that we have are those two budgets are on two completely different paths. The way that we bring them together is to stop and ask ourselves, what are the priorities of the federal government? Don't do other things. If we do that, we find our path forward.
Sorry, Senator Scott, we're getting there. I'm hoping for some pro-growth tax reform as well. Tomorrow night, by the way, in the Kudlow Report.